Joan Quinn is the former West Coast editor of Andy Warhol's Interview magazine and society editor of the Herald Examiner. Her cover stories are seen in Venice and Detour magazines, and she is a contributing editor to Angelus magazine. For the next half hour, Joan will bring you inside news and views on society, art, film, and the exhilarating worlds of these multifaceted people. Here is Joan Quinn.
Welcome to Joan Quinn, etc. I'm Joan Quinn, and we're happy you're watching the show. Our guests today are both from London, and they're great friends. Zandra Rhodes, the dress designer, and Andrew Logan, the artist, sculptor, whatever. We'll find out all the things that Andrew does later. Andrew designed the jewelry for Zandra, and he's been designing it for some time now. She was in town not too long ago, and she made an appearance at Neiman Marcus in Beverly Hills. She designs evening wear, day wear, and accessories. And her latest endeavor are men's neckties. We caught her in between fashion shows, luncheons, and tea parties for this short interview. Andrew is here all decked out in his jewels, so when you watch the interview, you'll know what to look for. Zandra, as well as the models in the film clip, are wearing Andrew Logan jewelry. Look for them, and here's Zandra Rhodes. We're able to take Zandra Rhodes away from her charity luncheon this afternoon after she finished a lecture to the women at the Music Center Club 100, and she came to the studio to do a quick interview with us. Thanks for coming, Zandra.
Only you could have talked me into leaving Neiman's shop floor.
Well, we want to know what the new work is that you're doing.
The collection's called Celestial Bodies, and it's really a sort of play on words because it was based on a fabulous trip that I took with a famous English sculptor, Andrew Logan, and we went to Morocco, and I did a lot of drawing and drew the sand dunes, like this sand dune dress.
Is that the shape of, and the color, and the movement?
And the movement, and I did prints with stars. But then, after having made a decision, the war then started, and I didn't like to implicate the fact that the designs might have started anywhere near that part of the world.
Oh, so what did you do?
I made a play on words, because I think now with all the short dresses, it's very celestial anyway. So I used it as celestial bodies, meaning it could mean the wonderful bodies, or it could mean the stars and moons on the prints.
Are you using different kinds of fabrics? You're known for your printed chiffons with hand beading. I noticed this line at Neiman's was a little bit different than what you usually do.
I've expanded the range of textures, like they're still the chiffons, but the chiffons have a shimmer because they go like from maybe ginger to like a dark brown. They shimmer, and they've been dyed specially. But then I've done printed velvets. I brought back the old Fortuny textures and brought out my old 1960s prints.
Is this print that I have on from the early 60s?
Yes, that's from the early 60s. On the jacket, you've got the Mr. Man print, which is based on a photograph of the Neon Man in Las Vegas.
But that originally was printed on chiffon.
It was originally printed on chiffon in the 1960s.
And now I've
done it on velvet, so it's unrecognizable, but it's a small print with little neons and everything on it.
And the idea, of course, is you started work as a designer, really designing fabrics.
Fabrics, so it's texture that goes over the body, and wonderful feels, and it's gorgeous to get back to the whole roots of the whole thing.
We have a short clip of a show that you just finished, and if you talk over it and tell us a little bit about it. We'll have the clip.
Oh, this is the opener of the show, and these are my necklace dresses, and they've got iridescent shimmering purples sort of like placed onto the print itself, and they have great big hats, and I made them do wonderful, like 1960s type poses.
They look great.
Or maybe even 1950s type poses, and you can see summer shifts, but they go on all sorts of different figures and look lovely.
And the celestial bodies in the back.
And they're the celestial bodies in the background. And when the different lighting came, I made the girls go around the columns and do wonderful poses, because it was for a charity evening in New Orleans, and I always think for a charity the men should be very happy when they see the dresses, because after all it's not just a woman wearing something, it's the fact that it's wonderful to be appreciated.
The other night we were at a fashion show, and the chairman of the event said, "You men have been dragged here tonight, but after this show you'll be begging to come back."
Oh, that's lovely. You see the lighting, they had wonderful down spots. It really was incredible. And then I did wonderful other effects with sort of like, I had some slightly op-art suits, and I had a downlight that was all glimmering, and I made them do movements with the op-art suits, and they had different colour gloves on.
Did you choreograph? Oh, here, we're going to see a little bit more.
Oh, these are the velvets. Well, these are chenille and gold lame.
Did you choreograph the whole show?
I choreographed the show, yes.
And do you do the lighting?
And I worked with the lighting. It was a lovely, you know, it's an experience I really enjoyed. I didn't do follow spots because I often think they really glare at people, you know, and burn the audience's eyes.
True. But those colors are so deep.
Yes.
But vivid.
But very rich, and we did some where with the velvets we made them appear with coloured lights to set the, you know, set the scene.
Do you ever get confused from one city to the other? You're always traveling so much.
I think that the most important thing in each city are your friends, and they're the people that make the city, regardless of all the other things like being rushed, whether you're doing an interview, whether you're appearing on a shop floor. It's how you see your friends as well in your time off. I mean, I never think of LA with anything but you, because you were the first person to even introduce me to LA.
But do you have friends in every city? Is that hard to find?
Well, I mean, in Houston, there's Richard Holley that got the award as the best interior decorator, and he did my shop in London 20, you know, so many years ago. And then in New Orleans, there's a wonderful friend that I used to fly to Houston to be dressed. So it's different little adventures.
And people also know you, I think, and if they know you're coming to a strange city, they'll call ahead and say, "We have a friend there," and go see them.
And I mean, this time, people in New Orleans were just getting to know me a bit more, and in all of the shop windows, they also had my Dianson watercolours. Oh, so great. It was linked up with the fact I launched my silk scarves that were versions of the watercolours.
Do you get a chance to do any painting? Because I know you love to paint so much.
I try and draw before I go out to work, you know, to the store in the morning, and try and think up things, but the actual watercolours I do just in London when I'm hidden away. But at the moment I've been doing some black and white fantasy drawings for all of Marshall Fields in Chicago, and they're like 5 foot high and covered with jewels.
Really? Do you think they'll use them in the windows?
They're going to use them in the windows, and then they're going to use them around the base of the biggest interior tree as a Zandra Rhodes Christmas that I'm turning the lights on in November.
Oh, that's great. The other thing, when you have any kind of spare time at all, what do you like to do?
I suppose draw and be with my friends, because you always get rapport, and it's only your friends that they don't say just what you want to hear. They might say, you know, why aren't you doing such and such anymore? Or, you know, like, you encouraged me all that time to get my book finished and set up exhibitions. And it's things like that that are so important. Someone will say, I haven't seen you do this lately. Why haven't you? And you go, oh, I've had so much to do. I haven't got round to that, but maybe I will now.
Do you find that you're influenced by anywhere you go, if you're out to dinner, if you're walking on the street, or do you have to just think of a certain place that you're going to be influenced?
I come to a place and do drawings, but sometimes the drawings might not necessarily achieve a collection. That doesn't have to matter. I mean, like when I go to Japan, I get given so many flowers that I draw flowers. Now, sometimes it might end up that I'll do a theme of floral silk scarves, but they get stored in my memory bank and get used somehow.
Do you have any advice for the people who are watching who can't buy a complete Zandra Rhodes, or maybe they can buy a scarf because you have scarves, or some small thing, but something that gives them a feeling of what you like?
I think with all the exciting people that you know, it's not really that they're always wearing the right thing. They've got their own combinations. You've got all your own watches. I've got maybe a big jewel. I've got my hair, which is, this time it's bright ginger.
Yes, it's different.
And those are all the different things that you offset things with. And I think in the period we're going through, I don't think people should always spend money just for the sake of saying I've got to have a new dress, when a scarf could be tied around, or you could add it with a different combination or a different way of looking at it.
Do you have certain colors that you think would help a person who has, say, an old dress in the closet and they keep wearing it all the time and they feel uncomfortable? They want
I think sometimes you need to put a contrast color against it, like if you've got a tired white dress that starts to go a bit yellow, you could add red or black to it and give it an incredible black and white look. Black and white jewellery, you know, you could do all sorts of different experiments. I mean, I think that's what's exciting about dressing. Exciting about if you're with friends who you see different ways of them putting things on, like you with my stole on, you know, and the reactions I had when I did the Neiman show with how I tied a scarf, and you suddenly think, oh gosh, I take that for granted, but I'm there for people to come in, see me during that day, and ask me to advise on what they can do.
That's why I thought maybe you could give the advice that you just gave to our viewers, because seeing someone like you gives other people the courage to get out and do something fun.
I think so. I mean, or you can have two versions. Like I've got a fabulous sort of box type suit with wonderful embroidered buttons, but I showed it with leggings. Now I've also got it with a skirt. But I had leggings that were also printed in my new prints, like lycras, either bodysuits or just the leggings themselves. And it gives a young, trendy look, but the suit itself is still a gorgeous Zandra Rhodes classic.
Well, we're going to leave with the Zandra Rhodes classic. Zandra Rhodes, who is the classic. Do you have anything really special about LA that you love?
Oh, there are so many things, it becomes increasingly difficult. Just believe it or not, driving along Melrose and seeing what's happened to it.
Thank you, Zandra Rhodes, for being with us today, and we really appreciate your sneaking away for a quick little talk with us.
Better rush back again.
Thank you. We're back in the studio, and we're back with Zandra's very good friend, Andrew Logan. Since that interview, I was in Brisbane and happened to run into Zandra after having lunch at the Sheraton. The Sheraton, it was such a great lunch. But I ran into her, and she was putting on the same fashion show of the clip that we saw. And I stayed in Brisbane and then took a car to the Gold Coast and stayed at the Sheraton Mirage. She wanted to come with me, Andrew, but you know she never gets a break or ever gets a vacation.
No, she works 24 hours a day.
And you have traveled with her.
Oh, very much so,
She mentioned it in the tape. Tell us where you've been and what you've done.
She introduced me to India in 1982, which in fact created for me a whole 2 years' work. And it was an exhibition, it culminated in an exhibition at the Commonwealth Institute in London.
And your clothes, your Nehru
Well, these clothes are made in India, but the actual sculpture I made as a result of the trip with Zandra. And then recently we went to Morocco, and we went right into the desert.
She talked about that. How did it influenced her and the ruffles of the chiffon? What did it do for your work?
Well, it gave me a great sort of feeling of being of the world and the eternity, because we sat in the middle of literally nowhere. There was no aeroplanes, there were no cars, there were no houses, there was just lots and lots of sand.
So, I've known Andrew Logan for 20 years, maybe more than 20 years. But every time I do a show, I ask for a bio. and I asked Andrew for the bio, and it started 1945, the beginning. Then it jumped to 1963, architecture school at Oxford. What happened in those 18 years in between?
Well, I had a very happy childhood.
Oh, good.
There's 5 brothers, 1 sister. And I think that really set the hope for the rest of my life. I think with a good childhood, it's you sail away then.
So you just start right at architecture school. Has
Yes.
that influenced you in your work?
Very much so. I think doing sculpture, you know how things are put together and you get the sense of balance and things. It's very useful.
I know you've designed, we talked about the jewelry, and that's not all you do.
Not at all.
But tell us how you would describe yourself. Artist, sculptor?
Well, I leave that very much up to the people that would like to describe it for me. I mean, I'm a sculptor, I'm an event maker, I have presented on television work, I've, what else have I done? I'm a jeweler.
What media do you use?
Glass, I tell people, mirror. I've been fascinated with mirror ever since I first used it in '68.
And how do you keep it together?
Which I use a resin, and I use with wood, but I use a lot of contemporary materials because I think as an artist living in 1991, we should explore new materials of today, and I leave bronze to other people.
Each year, you've created a body of work, and you've used a theme. Is that correct? Tell us.
Kind of, Joan. Yes, it's very much, it tends to be very much when I'm traveling, well, the world really is my, I suppose, my palette, and the universe. I showed here in Galactic Forest at Joan Simon's gallery and the Functional Art Gallery in 86, I think, 85. That was called Galactic Forest and was in fact inspired by the heavens.
But you also, aside from the sculpture that you made that year, you made jewelry that said Galactic on
Correct.
the back.
So everything works. It's very much my sculpture relates to my pieces of jewelry. Well, these pieces here, for instance, the wings, are as a result of the Alternative Miss World event that I held this year in May in London.
Lean forward, because the wings also kind of coincide with our angel chair behind you. Our angel has wings.
Oh yes, so we're both flying.
Kathleen Spiegelman has given us these angel chairs for the set, and it's so incredible that people really relate to the chairs. And here you are.
Here we are, flying along.
Yes. But tell us a little bit about Alternate Miss World, because I know when we started talking about it, people thought it was a happening, a festival, a stage play. Let's see, what else did we have? A fashion exhibition. So many things.
Well, they're all very good descriptions, Joan, actually.
A happening, a performance. I can go on and on.
I always describe it as a surreal art event for all-round family entertainment.
And I said that you are the hostess, the drag queen, may we say?
Well, it's very fashionable now, isn't it, drag queen? So,
yes, but really, you called yourself something other than...
Host and hostess.
Host and hostess. Here's Andrew as the host.
The host.
And the hostess.
On the theme of Earth, this particular one was. I'm going through the elements at the moment.
But I want to show also to our viewers how you dressed. You dressed one side in a dress and one side in a pants.
And the ladies' side has been for many, many years Zandra's. So I'm the only person in the world who has half a Zandra Rhodes.
Tell us what happens in Miss Alternative Miss World, yes.
Well, we have day wear, swimwear, and evening wear, and we have a distinguished line of judges, and we have cabaret.
It's actually a fashion show, a contest?
A contest. Men and women enter. People who've never been on the stage before, no one professional. Like my sisters entered everyone and never won. The last person who won was a boy called Miss Gale Force Wind, because we were doing the theme of air, and he was extraordinary.
They make their own costumes?
They make their own costumes, and...
do you have a picture? Do we have something that we can show?
Do we have Miss Gale Force Wind anywhere?
Well, let's see. Do we have her here?
Oh, dear.
Here, we have somebody.
Ah, yes, that's the 1985 Alternative Miss World. That was a daywear outfit. That was Miss Marianne Unfaithful. That's right.
Marianne
Unfaithful.
Look at her costume. Did you help with it?
No, no, and I think that costume cost, I seem to remember, in the region of about $10.
Oh, so it's very creative.
Some spend a lot of money, others nothing. It depends on their circumstances.
And then how do they enter?
Well, they just find out about it, because I've been doing it since 1972. The original one was in my studio for 100 people.
It's an institution in London. I think it's an underground institution. You really have to know who to call and where to find out what's going on.
No, it's been on television. It's been screened 4 or 5 times now.
You did make a full-length film.
Feature film, yes. That was Divine was in that one,
Yes.
1978.
She was one of the judges, I remember.
The co-presenter.
Oh, I see.
Co-presenter, and was a great surprise to Divine as well as to all of us.
Andrew, one of your dreams, your lifelong dreams, has been to have a museum. And I know, tell us about the museum, because I think you finally realized it. I haven't seen it, but I think you've realized it.
Well, it was a dream 8 years ago. I wanted people, exhibitions last 3 weeks or 3 months and then they go. Nobody sees the work. I wanted somewhere, people used to come to my studio and leave smiling. And I really wanted for that to be on a more permanent basis. So I found this little building in Wales, in the best kept village in Wales, called Berryw. And it's actually, the building's very Los Angeles. My associate, Michael Davis, designed it. And
so you had the shell of a building and you did the whole
Yes, it's 2 old
inside?
squash courts, built in 1979, and we've converted it into these wonderful museum, of which I have some pictures here.
Oh, good, do you?
Yes.
Great.
There's one there, Joan.
Here, we just showed, let's
can you
see.
see this? If you held that one.
I'll hold it.
What shall I
and
do?
then you
I'll
can
hold-
describe it to
Yes,
us.
this is the River Rue, and then this is the building, and this is another picture of the building, with pieces of sculpture out in the car park. And we open for the summer season.
These are pieces of sculpture. Is that right? These tall
Correct,
flowers,
yes.
and they're all
They were
made of
used to-
glass and.
They're actually aluminium and were used for the trophies for the Alternative Miss World 1981.
Wow. And
you
this
can
is
see
the
how-
exterior?
Yeah, it's rather LA, I think.
Very.
It is rather, because considering it's in Wales, it's
It's
extraordinary.
big. How do you get there from London? If someone were to come from London,
You head up the M40,
you drive?
you drive, and it takes about 3.5 hours, which for American is not very far, but for the English they find it rather far. This is the cosmic egg, which is housed in the museum as you come in.
And is this all glass?
Yes, and this is 14 feet high, 8.5 feet across, and weighs 3/4 of a ton, and is the symbol of the life principle.
I see more things up here that
Correct.
are yours.
Therefore used, I've done a few ballets as well. This was for the a ballet about Mozart.
This,
The lightning and the moon. This is a profile of Mozart, in fact.
So how do you choose your subjects, and how did you decide what you were going to put in the museum?
Because I'm so prolific, Joan. I mean, I have created so much work. I'm a workaholic, so I spend all my time working. I've created so much stuff. So it's like there's Egypt Revisited, and there's Goddesses, which is the Indian inspiration. Then there's all the Alternative Miss World portraits, which are huge. I mean, they are life-size portraits. They're like the things you see in Versailles and all the castles of
We do have
Europe.
one really large sculpture. Maybe
Yes.
you can come in on this.
Oh,
Tell
the
us about
Pegasus,
this.
yes.
Pegasus. This was in your studio for years. Now is it in the museum?
No, in fact, there's no room in the museum. They're still in London, in the Glass House in London. And the back one is Pegasus, the Monument to Hope. And she is on the front, and she's the Monument to Joy. And that's on their honeymoon in Ireland. I exhibited them on the west coast of Ireland, overlooking towards America. And they spent the summer there.
Oh, that's beautiful. The picture that was on is beautiful. Well, I'm sure they feel terrible that they're not in the museum.
Yes, they'll be visiting.
But will that exhibit change, or will you just...
It will change as I have
will.
exhibitions around the world. You see, I'm very keen. I think as an artist, we should all be travelling around the world, because to me, the creative force is the force really, is the saviour of the world. Creativity. And the more one can travel with the work and show the work, I think it's very important.
Is there a certain element that you haven't discovered yet? Is there something that you keep thinking you're going to find? Yes.
Oh, yes.
What is it?
I don't know. That's why I keep searching. I'm using mirror, which has so many endless possibilities. At the moment, I'm doing portraiture. And in fact, I've got a piece at the moment in Madonna. I've just done a Madonna, huge portrait of her.
Out of what?
Glass.
So it's a flat mirrored piece.
Yes,
Do
in fact, we do have I'm afraid the images are a bit small, but we do have something here. These, in fact, are mirrored here.
I'll hold them this way, over here.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
And let's see if we can just come
Can you
in on,
see?
they're very small.
Very small, very difficult
there,
to see.
that's good. Can you describe them now?
Yes, well, these here, this is my brother Richard and Peter, my sister Janet, Michael and Robin. And they are...
Little Nell.
Yes, and Little Nell, but these are three-dimensional and divine.
I see. And the other ones
But
are
the flat ones, I actually cut rather like, I always describe it rather like a Matisse drawing, where you can only do one line. You go
Oh, is that how they're done?
and that's how they're done, yes.
So are those displayed in the museum?
Yes, some of them. But it's my new obsession, really, portraiture, because I think really without people there wouldn't be art. So, I mean, people to me are the most important.
How do you pick the people for your portraiture?
Well, I've started with family and friends, and I've had commissions now.
Do you think it's because you know the person?
No.
You feel that you have to know the person
No,
better?
I don't actually, because I did Margaret Thatcher, which was an extraordinary picture. It was bought and it was hanging opposite a mirror, and when you looked at it in one way, she looked wonderful and, you know, kindly person, and then you looked in the mirror and I'd made her eyes so blue and steely. There was this other side to her, you know, the Iron Maiden. And so it has these aspects that you can see in the mirror.
And you don't have to actually, you don't feel like you have to actually be there with them.
No.
You can interpret it.
Yes.
But have you thought about doing Hollywood?
I'd love to do Hollywood.
Anything in
Yes! Yes, I adore Hollywood. I think it's the sunshine and there's just something about it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you before we leave the studio, because I know you're just visiting. You haven't been to Los Angeles for a few years.
No, I was actually here last year.
Was it last year?
And you were away in Vienna.
That's what happened. Oh, it was a year ago.
So, and before that was 3 years.
But the thing is, it seems like English people love to come to Los Angeles.
Well, it's the sunshine,
Is that what
Jen.
it
You
is?
have the sunshine.
Well, that's what I wondered, if that was your favorite part. What is your favorite part of LA?
Well, I think the sunshine, and I also think the people. I love the people. I mean, I have very good friends here. I'm seeing the Tim Street Porter and Annie Kelly and Joan Simon, and then there's a whole group of friends that I've known for so many years, and it's wonderful, and for me it's a magic land, actually.
Magic, that's it. And like magic, we're going to be out of here. We want to thank Andrew Logan and Zandra Rhodes for being with us today. And thank you for watching Joan Quinn, etc. Come back and see us next week.